Hi, this is George from Upfish, your marketing automation expert. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to automatically sync your LinkedIn posts with OpenAI. So what this will do is once you've set up the automation, it will run in the background always, and it will mean that every time you ask OpenAI to create copy for your social media, it will draw on your most popular posts, look at the style of writing, the things you say, so that what it generates is actually, appropriate for what you need. So there's a lot of use cases for this. The one that this is a direct follow-up to my previous video, which is on how to become a LinkedIn top voice, because in that module, we're just using an OpenAI module to essentially create posts for us. But obviously, if we can ask an assistant to look at our previous LinkedIn post history, it will do a much better job of doing that. So this is the setup for it. So just to get a bird's eye view of the whole automation, it looks quite long. We've got two routers, which makes a total of 3 branches. And you might think this is pretty long for what it is, just collecting LinkedIn posts and putting them into OpenAI. The reason for that is because basically, if you think of this in 2 stages, this first half here is just collecting LinkedIn posts and adding them to a Google Doc so that I have it all in a list. The second half is just checking basically, does this file already exist? If so, I need to delete the old file in OpenAI, upload the new one. And if it's something brand new we're working with, then this is this branch here, and it will just create a new file, new folder, new vector, all of this stuff. So let's take a step back. How do we get started? The first step as ever is in an Airtable. So this Airtable is actually part of a much larger project I'm working on, which is essentially automating everything in your social media and content. So if that kind of stuff interests you, make sure you check out my school community and my Gumroad and like and subscribe to this channel. But for now, we'll just focus on what it actually is done. And in this case, we have a files tab, which is just our way of syncing all of the files that we want our marketing assistant to look at, just to make sure that they're constantly up to date and we have the right IDs attached to them. So to start with, you just need a name. And then you need a column for OpenAI for the file ID, the vector ID, and your Google ID. So we're using Google to basically create the documents, whether they be Word or Excel. And so I'm storing them in my drives. This is why we need a Google ID. But this is filled in, so you don't need to fill this in with any information. You just need LinkedIn post examples as a name for the file. All right, so I'll jump back into the make scenario. So what's going to happen next? Well, what's going to happen first? So once we have basically the infrastructure set up, actually, no, I haven't quite finished infrastructure. The other thing you need to make is a Google Sheet. So let me just drag this over here. So this is just a very simple example. I've made a Google Sheet. So I've given it a date, a URL, content, like, comment, impression as the headers. And then it will get filled out with information like this. We'll have the date our thing was posted. Although I've put the wrong date in here. This is today's date. I need to change this to be for the date it was posted. So it's a good thing that I'm going through this video. We have the URL. I'll show you how to change that in a second. We have the URL that links to the link to the post. We have the content of the post. We have the amount of likes it got, the amount of comments, the amount of impressions. If you feel sorry for me looking at these low numbers, please make sure you check out my LinkedIn page, linkedin.com/in/George Woodworth, and give me some likes, give me some comments. Although YouTube is much more important. Even if you hate this video, please give it a like, and just a generic comment like, you got a really terrible haircut, did you do that yourself? And the answer is yes, I did do it myself. And that will get me some engagements and give me more motivation to make more videos. But all right, I've digressed. I've sidetracked myself enough. To get started with this, we need an Airtable. And we also need just a Google Sheet where we're going to put in the information from LinkedIn. All right. So now we can come back to the information I want, which is here. All right. So once we have that set up, we can start building the automation. So the first step is to use a tool called TextAU. So textau.com is basically identical to Phantom Buster. I don't make any big proclamations on which is better. I use TextAU because I got a lifetime deal on AppSumo. But it's just like any of these tools where you basically put in your LinkedIn cookie, and from there it can scrape your LinkedIn. So what I'm asking this one to do, well, I'll just show you here. I'm asking it to run the spice of collect the most recent activities I have, platform LinkedIn, and then I just add in my LinkedIn cookie. I add in my profile URL, the amount of posts, so the activity type is here posts, and the post date is week. You can change this if we come to TextAU. You can change this in the spice. You can have a look. I think the other, if you go to TextAU and you have a look, you can change this, for example, to month or to year or whatever. Oops, where's my thingy? Oh, I've lost it. Here we go. Great. So I just, for the purposes of this one, I'm just going to keep it at week. So what happens when I run that? Basically, all it does is it gives me an execution ID to say, all right, now we are scraping this particular profile for his posts or her posts or their posts. Please wait. So I put in a sleep timer here, 2 sleep timers of 300 seconds each for a total of 10 minutes. That's quite a lot of overkill. If I come back to TextAU here, for this particular run, it only took 37 seconds to find everything it needed. but that's just because it was scraping one post. I only made one post last week. So on the basis that you might have a different time limit here, you might want to, just keep this at 10 minutes. It doesn't really matter. It's just time, which we have plenty of. Once the sleep timers are finished, the next one here is basically another TextAU module, which is just collecting the results. So you map it to the execution ID from the first TextAU module. And then what this does here, as you can see, it collects the results. So this is here the profile URL it was looking for, the post URL, the content of the post, the amount of likes, the comments, the impressions. And as you can see here, I have accidentally mapped it to the timestamp in my Google Sheets. I need to change it to activity date. That was pretty stupid. But once it has that, so imagine in this case just one result, but you could have 5, you could have 10, you could have 100. We need to move on with this. So the next stage is actually a router. And what we have here is a filter to the top one to say, was it successful? Now, the reason I have this in here is because this, like Phantom Buster, relies on LinkedIn cookies. So obviously you need to update these LinkedIn cookies periodically, otherwise it won't work. So if we get a false result, what I have here is just a Slack message to say to my analytics channel, I need to update the TextAU cookie. So if I ever get that message on a Monday morning, whatever, it takes me 1 second, just grab my LinkedIn cookie, go into this module here and just replace the LinkedIn cookie for this field here, run it again, and it will all be good. Now, in this case, we see that it was successful. So the next stage is an iterator. This iterator is just looking at the results. Again, I only have the one post, but if I had like 20, 30, I want to make sure I get all of them. So that's what the iterator does. And then we map it to our Google Sheet. So this Google Sheet here that I showed you earlier, what I have here, I've manually mapped it here. So I say, all right, update my master Google Sheet. It's called LinkedIn posts. The date is not the timestamp, it is the activity date. So I format the date because you see here the activity date 17th of June 2024. I want it to be as day, month, year. So I just add in format date, activity date, DD, MM, YYYY. Post URL obviously is the URL, content, like count, comment count, impression count. So this way my Google Sheet over time, every month or every week, it will just add in all of the posts I have with their with the stats as they were accurate up till then. Okay, and then after that, just press OK. And then after that, we have an array aggregator. So why do we have that? Because again, if I had 100 results here, this is going to run 100 times. And I don't want the next ones to run 100 times as well. Basically, I want to reset it down to one run. So this array aggregator, I just map it to the Google Sheets, and it will just basically turn these 100 operations into, not 100 operations, 100 items back down into one. So now when I look for a record, it will only run it once. It won't run it 100 times, for example. Now, what is the record we're looking at here? So at this stage, this is the first half. We've created our Google Sheet, which has our LinkedIn copy. The next stage is to get that copy into OpenAI. So we search for records. So again, this is connected to my content Airtable, and I'm looking at the files table, and my formula is name equals LinkedIn post examples. You need to just put this in manually. So again, in my Airtable, I've called it LinkedIn post examples. If you call it historical successful LinkedIn posts, or the LinkedIn posts I have with the most impressions, whatever, you just need to make sure that this name is the same as the name here. And it will try and find basically, does this does this file concept exist in my Airtable? If it does, then we get total number of bundles 0. So we see here it existed. When I ran it first, this was deleted. This was a blank slate. So if you're running this from scratch, there's going to be nothing there. So what happens if there's nothing there? What happens if we're running this for the very first time? So we don't have any files. Well, it goes into a router. Either the file exists or it doesn't exist. So if it exists, then there'll be bundle order positions. This bundle order position will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I put down it's greater than 0. And if it doesn't exist, it's the fallback route. So we see here, it doesn't exist. Again, I want to make this clear. Although you see here, there is a row. This is because I've just ran it as a test so it's been created. Previously, this was completely blank. This was completely empty. There was nothing here at all. So within the operation, it said, all right, we've created this LinkedIn post, but there's nothing there. What's going to happen now? Well, what I need to do is I need to create a new doc. So I create a Google Doc and I call it weekly LinkedIn posts. And then I give it the title of the weekly LinkedIn for this particular time. Again, if you're running this monthly, you might want to change this to monthly. This is just for me, how I would use it. And then in the content is like a header within the content. So on the page, it will say top performing LinkedIn posts, format, date now, DDD, MMM, YYYYY, and I put it in my custom GPT folder. So this is, all right, so it's a blank for this content, which says this is the top performing LinkedIn posts. And if you want to see what this looks like, I should have my web view ID here somewhere. So I'll just copy this, paste it in here. Okay, so this is what's going to be added in. Okay, this stuff here is what gets added later on. So imagine this is all, imagine this doesn't exist. It's like this. This is what your doc would look like after that first operation. Okay, all right. So it creates this doc. And then what I want to do is, I don't want to fill it with all of the LinkedIn posts I have. If I have 1 million LinkedIn posts and a lot of them are just terrible and get like 1 impression, I don't want my GPT to learn from that. What I'm going to ask it to do is to look at my master sheet, and I want it to basically give me 10 results, and I sort it by the amount of impressions. So by descending order of impressions, so it will look at it will take that column of impressions. Again, let me just move this Google sheet here. So imagine again, I had like 20 results here. What it would do is it would basically reorder them. So the biggest impressions at the top, and it would take the top 10 performing posts according to impressions. And again, this works for me. You might want to change it. You might want to order it by the amount of comments they have or the amount of likes. It's totally up to you, or some sort of a formula thereof. But I just keep it simple. So basically the top 10 amount of impressions, get me them. So it searches the rows. And then this is the results you'll get. You'll get all of the different output bundles of all of the rows. And then what I want to do is I want to add these rows I want to add this content into my Google Doc. So I have here a module, basically insert a paragraph to a document. And I just give it this information, the date, the URL, the content, the like count, the comment count, and the impressions. And then for every row, it will add a paragraph. So if I come back to my document here, I have the date, the URL, the content, and this is the content, the like count, the comment count, the impression count. And then so if I had more than one example, I wish I'd changed it. I wish I'd made more posts this week to make this more impactful. But imagine there was like 3 or 4 posts, you would see a document like this. Let me just delete that. I don't want to ruin it for later. So you'd see a document like that. It would have all of it just in a Word doc, your top 10 posts with the various stats related to it. Okay. Then we have another array aggregator. The same reason we have one here, because again, if there's 10 posts, that means that there's 10 runs happening. I need to reset it down to 1. So the array aggregator matches to the Google Docs just to turn those 10 operations into 1 operation, keep things smooth. And then we're ready to upload this information to our Google Assistant. So the first step is a Google Doc. So again, this works better with workspace accounts rather than personal accounts, but I map it to the document ID I've just created, and it will download the doc. All right. So it downloads the doc, and I set here in the stats anything which is downloaded as a Google Files. I put it to PDF just because I've had a bad experience with Word docs that have been created from Google Doc and added up to OpenAI. There is a way around it. You make an API call, and actually maybe they fixed it now because it's been a while since I did it. With Vegas implicitly, since I know that OpenAI can read PDFs well, I just change it here, make it a PDF. Saves me a whole lot of problems. So this downloads it as a PDF. And then it's just a case of uploading the file. So we have a module here, which is basically upload a file to GPT. So I map it to the Google Drive for the purpose of assistance. Then I need to add it to a vector store. So what is a vector store? So if I come into my GPT here, when you create your assistant, so in this case, I've created one called Social Media Advisor, you can give it the option to do a file search. And when you do a file search, it creates a vector ID. So basically you just want to copy that. You just have to do this once. You just copy. Well, actually, you don't have to do this once, but it's helpful. So you just copy this vector ID here, okay? And then the next one, when you're adding it to the vector store, you'll just select it. Well, you don't even need the ID, actually. You can just select it. So this one here is called Vector Store for Social Media Advisor. So to take 2 steps back, sorry. Please like and subscribe to these videos, even though it's very clear. I put no preparation into them. There's no scripting. I'm making this up as I go along. So apologies if this is all over the place. But after we've uploaded the doc to OpenAI, we need to make sure our assistant can actually access it. And the assistants have what are known as vector stores. So we're going to add our recently uploaded file to the vector store. So here there's a modular make, basically add files to vector store. We see here in terms of how this is set up. I basically a batch create mode, choose the vector store. Vector store ID is vector store for Social Media Advisor. So this is the assistant I created for my social media. And then I map the file ID to the uploaded file. And then finally, we finish it off by creating a record in our Airtable. So again, I said it was completely blank earlier in my Airtable, but then it gets uploaded with this. My LinkedIn post examples, OpenAI file, the OpenAI vector file, and the Google document ID. So this is the ID from this creating a new document, the ID from uploading a file, and the ID from adding a file to a vector store. So again, it goes from blank, and now we have this filled in. Okay, so That's what you do when you're starting from scratch. But what happens if next week I have a new file? You're probably thinking, does this mean that my that my assistant is now going to have like 10 files? Every time I ask it for advice, it's going to go through 10 files of very similar information? No. Our approach to this is going to be every week or every month. So again, you set how often you want this to run. But basically every time we want to update it, we're not going to basically add another file and add another file. So there's 3 files. We're going to delete the old file and replace it with a new one. So this top branch, very similar to one that runs below it. But this one here again, if we're searching for the records, it finds the information. So in this case, it didn't because it didn't exist. But now that it does exist, it would come into exist because we have here name equals LinkedIn post examples. There is one here, LinkedIn post examples. So the next time I run this, now that I already have something there, it will say, oh, this file already exists. So what's it going to do? It's going to delete the old document. So I map this to the Google ID that we added into the Airtable. So it uses this ID and it will just delete the old file because it's old information now. Don't need it. Delete the old document and then it runs exactly the same more or less as the one underneath it. I'll create a brand new document. I'll grab the top 10 posts from my Google Sheets. I'll add those posts to this new doc I've created. I'll use the array aggregator to reduce the amount of operations down to 1. I'll download that Google Doc. Again, this time here, I need to delete the doc again. So we make an API call to version 1/files and then the OpenAI file ID. So this is the file ID that you've collected here. So it will delete this file. Okay. It will add the new doc that we've created here from our Google Drive download, add it to the vector store and then update the Airtable. So rather than creating a new file, it will find this row and it'll just replace the OpenAI file ID and the Google ID with the new information. And then what happens then? So that means, okay, I'll just use the playground here for a second. It means when you're in your playground ID, so this is the playground for my assistant, I can say something like, what was my top performing post last week in terms of impressions? Run it. Top performing post was the new video drop, 96 impressions. Great. So it's able to access the data. So this is step 1. So, well, I say step 1. This is actually in its own right a pretty useful automation, which can be changed. So you could use this for sales data, any kind of data you want. Basically, you would follow this second half of the automation to upload the files and replace existing files. In terms of what we can do with this specific one, well, we're collecting all of this information about our LinkedIn writing style, the 10 posts that we've written, which get the most traction with our audience. So if I come back to the video that I made before this, which was something to do with LinkedIn top voices. Yeah, this one here. Okay, so if you've seen my video from before, this should be old news to you. If you've never seen it before, this is an automation which basically will search for LinkedIn top voice articles within your niche, get the information and generate an answer for you using OpenAI. But now that we have an assistant built, I can replace just the generic OpenAI. I can add in a module here, OpenAI, and I'm going to message an assistant. Sorry, it's a little bit slow while I'm waiting for this to load. Great, so I choose the assistant I have, my social media advisor. I forgot what my original message was now. The message is, okay, so just again, if you've never seen this particular automation before, what this does is it looks for Google search results for those top voice articles you can contribute to on LinkedIn. It will search for like 10 of those related to your niche. So if one was automations, it will look for these articles related to automations from the last week. It breaks down the questions and the title. And then what it lets me do is to basically get my assistant to create answers for those and then send it to a Slack message. So every Monday morning, it will be like copy and paste this message to this link, paste this message to this link. It means I can become a top voice in like 5 minutes a day. Again, before we were using just a normal chat GPT to construct these answers, but now I can call on my social media advisor. So the message would be something like, here is, gosh, hang on, I forgot what the original one was. Let me just refresh this, don't save. Just going to copy and paste. Sorry, just going to copy and paste the original instructions from the chat GPT because I forgot what it was I wrote. So in my original GPT message here, yeah, great. I'm saying you're a marketing automation expert, whatever. So I'm going to add in a module here, and the module is OpenAI, message an assistant. My assistant is my social media advisor, I think. Yep, great. The message, I'll just paste it in. You're a marketing automation expert. I'll provide HTML code summarizing a LinkedIn page, inviting people for their opinions. Oh, I put opinions wrong. How embarrassing. Inviting people for their opinions on a subject, analyze the code, figure out the likely topic, then the likely subtopics. Pick one of these to form an answer to, make the answer in line with my writing style from my LinkedIn posts examples file. Use my notes below as a guiding philosophy. There's no guiding philosophy. Great. Output the results in a JSON, subtopic answer. Great. Show advanced settings. The model, nothing to model. File search resources, vector store. So I'll just keep this. I don't need this to be mapped. And then it will run. Now, before I run this, the problem that I have with assistants is getting the output results in JSON, because you need to build functions, which in my case I haven't bothered to do because it takes too long for me to do this quickly. So in an ideal world, I'd have a response format JSON object. That's not going to work here. So I'll keep it as auto. So just ahead of time, what's going to happen here, it's going to give me a result which is kind of like a JSON. It'll be subtopic and answer, but it will introduce it so annoyingly as here is a JSON, so I can't use it. So what I would do in that case is I would change this OpenAI, delete this information, don't need any of it now, delete this one. And I'm just going to say, here is a message, and then map it to my text, the value, turn this into a JSON, turn this into a proper JSON, JSON, with the format. Oops, I forgot what the format was. Let me just go back into the other module. I feel like I'm losing my audience now that I've got to the end and I'm making stuff up instead of having a pre-prepared one. So if I am losing you, please like and subscribe and comment before you go. Again, check out my school. It's a pretty cool place to be. Anyway, turn this into the proper JSON for the format, subtopic and answer. Okay, great. Opens JSON object here, just to make sure, response object JSON, then it goes into the parser, then the Slack. So if I run this once, okay, so now that we've put in the assistant and the automation's ran, it's got a little yellow triangle here because I force stopped it because I only need it to run once, so then I need to do this 10 times to prove a point. But what's happened here, the HTTP module has made a call to Google and it's asked for a search of linkedin.com, the advice, so these are all of the top voice articles, and then it's got all of the results. So we see here's one article from the last week. All this is all to do with these top voice articles for automation. It's got the information of these links. Blah, 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 blah. It's got some further information about these links, and it sent it to my assistant. And now the assistant, with the benefit of my, I mentioned before about the annoyingness of the assistants in JSON. So you see here, tilde, JSON, then the actual JSON, then more tildes. And then so this one here, yeah, you see it turned it into a clean JSON. So it's much easier for me to use. Turned it into a JSON, engaging stakeholders, and then a Slack message. So now in my Slack message, I can just go to this link here, copy paste it. Here's how you can optimize your processes. One of them should be called engage stakeholders. Is that right? I've lost my, oh dear. Which one? There's this one here. Engage stakeholders. So I can just copy. So again, this is in my Slack every day. So just be like, copy this answer to this link for this subtopic, engage stakeholders. Go to engage stakeholders, put it in, done, easy peasy. You probably have noticed here, the only drawback here is that I'm training this on my LinkedIn posts. And there's only one of them, so it doesn't have a lot of information to go off. Obviously, when you've done 10, you'll have a bit more. You might also want to consider in this one specific use case, you might want to consider creating like a file of your company or your personal value proposition. So your philosophies, your ideas on this particular subject, so it's got more information to draw on. But the big story, or I guess the long story, the long and the short of it is, this system here is a pretty cool one for getting all of your LinkedIn post information, sorting it by the amount of impressions, so you find the popular ones, and then automatically syncing it with your assistant. So when you're asking for LinkedIn copy, it'll give you a better voice of what you want. And then there's one particular use case that you could use immediately because it's the most recent video I have, and it's also up there on my school community. It's just add in the message and assistant function here. So now it will basically be writing it closer to your own words. The other use case, of course, is just creating social media copy. So create a copy on LinkedIn for my new video about syncing your popular LinkedIn posts, your popular organic LinkedIn posts with ChatGPT, so your AI can write in your style. Create a copy, base it on my writing style and language and voice, etc. from my most popular LinkedIn examples, run it. Again, this is just me using it in the playground. You would have this in an automation, so it's happening automatically. But yeah, great, new video alert. So this is actually how I always start my things. New video drop, new video alert. Everyone's taking a link to get to the next level, whatever, okay, maybe you're unique. Great. And then, so it works. Right, so I hope you liked the video. Please like, subscribe, comment, as I mentioned before. If you like this stuff, this is available on my Gumroad. It's also available in my school. So here in my school, as you can see, I have the automations as I make them, and I upload them with the JSON, my Airtable templates, plus any other information that is relevant to it. So, well, thank you for watching. Goodbye.